we're calling it manifesting magical moments. And it's embracing the extraordinary in the everyday life, which I just love, because you don't have to have the picture perfect life to have those little moments.
83% of Americans identify as not very happy, which can hold you back and negatively affect your relationships and your business. On this podcast, we discuss the proven steps to happiness so you can restore balance and rekindle your joy.
Welcome to another edition of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. It's going to be a fun one today. Today we have Kelz the Kiwi. Kelz, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty darn awesome. Thank you for asking.
And we are going to talk about what everyone, I think, loves to talk about. At least you love to talk about it when you were a kid, and that is magic, right? So, Kelz, could you share with us how your childhood in New Zealand shaped your early experiences with anxiety and depression, and how did these experiences influence your path towards mental health advocacy?
Oh, thank you. That's a really good question. Oh gosh, growing up in New Zealand, it feels like such a long time ago now. Not just because I'm not a spring chicken anymore, although I feel like a kid at heart, and I'm forever going to hold on to that. It's because I moved away from New Zealand 12 years ago, so it kind of like takes me a moment to put myself back there. But when I think about my time in New Zealand, and I don't think I even knew it was anxiety or depression. I don't think any kid really understands that for themselves. But I think like a lot of people who grew up in those times, like it wasn't the storybook kind of upbringing I had. I wasn't, beaten up or anything like that. I didn't have an abusive household. There was just a lack of sharing about how you're feeling inside and holding stuff in. So my own experiences with my family, it was all more conflict, more like, let's just take each other apart. Let's just not come together as a united front, but let's just, I guess without saying anyway, be mean to each other. And I didn't know how to take that as a young child. Like, what do you do with that? Like, if sitting at the table and everybody's just being mean to one another. And I can remember just looking around going, I don't really want to partake in this, but I feel like I'm going to get picked on if I don't. So I actually became somebody even to this day, I was like, I just want to say sorry to a lot of people because I wasn't true to myself. And felt like I was almost not forced. No one held a gun to my head to make me be this way. But it just was such like I had to fit in. The anxiety started there because like everybody's acting a certain way. And I didn't inherently feel that because I felt like I was a good person deep down, and so the little magical sprinkles, even in life back then, the little things I would do to get myself out of that mindset, which when I look back was so sweet, like taking a little notebook and going on little ventures around the outside of the house, finding magical flowers and pretending, kind of like just really enacting something that wasn't there, like a little fantasy world. So that's what got me through. But it's so sad that it took me actually leaving New Zealand when I was older and going to live in the UK for a bit to make me realize that wasn't normal. That wasn't how it's supposed to be. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of.
Yeah, it does. Like, I mean, you said I didn't know how to deal with people being mean. Like, what kid knows how to deal with anyone being mean, but let alone their family members?
Yeah, it was such a struggle that really the first time I left home was really to get away from that. I thought I wanted adventures, and yes, I love to travel. Us Kiwis and our big OE, our overseas experience, it's really a big huge part of us. But for me, it was like I inherently knew that I needed to see what was different in life, to see what I had kind of, I don't want to say missed out on, but in a way I did, to see what really is out there. And that really opened my eyes. But the anxiety and depression had already formulated. So I had those new experiences with that within me, but also even more of an awareness of that's not what doesn't feel true to me to be in this state. It really, really didn't.
So when you say you're sitting around the family, the dinner table, and everyone's mean, does that include your parents?
Oh, that is specifically, yeah. Like, it's I don't want to like really like throw anybody under the bus. I know everybody can say it goes back to your childhood. And honestly, it really does how we're formulated. Like we're a product of our experiences, right, at a young age. But it was more my parents divorced, so I lived predominantly with my mother. So it was my mother and stepfather. And it was always like more like there was one person that got picked on that night and everybody else bombarded them. You know, it was kind of like a game. It felt like a game. And I didn't know any different. And then I always was like, yes, it's so not me tonight. Like, yeah, pick on my brother, you know, or when older, like have a big gap between my brother and sister, pick on my sister. Like, it just, and then when it was my turn, I just shut down. Like, I would kind of try and like stand up for myself, but really had no knowledge of what to do. And then that, you know, obviously affected my self-worth. Like, don't speak up became my norm. Like, and now to be on this podcast, Brad, like I have a voice. Yay.
So congratulations. Like, it's awesome. You're overcoming this. So wow, there's so much here to unpack. This stuff is just so interesting to me. So you were put in a situation that no child should be. And that's, you know, people were mean to you, right? And so you had to shut down your emotions. You had to push them down because you couldn't say, mom and stepdad, this isn't right what you're doing to me. Please stop. Because what would that have gotten you? That would have probably gotten you more being meanness, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
So Dr. Gabor Mate, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a phenomenal doctor in the space. He's spent 40 years as a physician, but he also does a lot on the mental health side. And he talks about what happens when you depress emotions for years and years and years. It turns into depression. So it was just your brain formed depression and anxiety as a way to cope. That's how Kelz got through her rough childhood is by forming this depression, anxiety. And yeah, when you checked out as a little girl, it was like you were trying to be in this imagination world that you talked about because your world wasn't that safe and it wasn't that comfortable, right?
No, it wasn't. And it's a funny thing. I think once I had an awareness of it later in life, I could make peace with it or whatever, but it was still like, I just want to go back in time and hug that little girl and tell her, you know, it's not your fault. Like, wish we could actually do back all these experiences that we all go through. Go back to that little child and say, it's going to be okay. Like, you're a tough nut, you shouldn't have to go through this, but you are, because, you know, there's always going to be bad experiences, right? But it's the outcome. And I think it's the main thing I've discovered with even talking with other people. It's once you have an awareness, when you're in that hole, you can't see a way out. But I always say, this is my little sprinkle of magic, because I'll keep doing that throughout this, is I can almost feel, and it's visceral right now. It's almost like you're lying down and you're in a tunnel, or there's some darkness, and there's like a tiny little pinprick of light. And I say those little magical flurries, like as long as I could always see that tiny little pinprick of light, I knew everything was going to be okay. That was kind of like my little beautiful thread that held me into the world, because it was such a sad space that I was in. To pull myself out of it is quite an achievement and a lot of people go through this as well. But the awareness thing and seeing that little spark of magical hope.
Yeah. So, Kelz, you said, I wish I could go back and hug that little 6-year-old girl. And guess what? You can. You can be the loving parent that you never had. And what I do in my practice with my clients is we actually bring we'll pick that little 6-year-old girl up and we'll bring her into our world, because every time that you feel a negative emotion, if you feel anger or sadness, it's hardly ever has to do with the actual situation, but it's that little girl inside of you feeling that way. It's going back to that little girl. So when you feel these emotions, you get to know that it's not your adult self. It is the child self in you, and you get to give her their love. So we actually, I developed something about a year ago called the Joy Regenerator. And it teaches you can go get it for free at bradchandler.com/joy. It teaches you exactly how to process those emotions when they come up. And that's the way that you actually heal that inner child inside of you. So it's,
I love that.
it's a beautiful thing. You when you feel that negative emotion, you're in a fight or flight, right? Every single time.
Oh
So
yeah.
you breathe and you get centered, and then you ask, what is it that I'm feeling? So I'm feeling sad, and then you're going to remember it's that little girl. So you can say to her out loud, "It's okay, Kelz, you're feeling sad. I have you." Instead of running or pushing him down, now you get to feel those emotions, and when you feel those emotions, they'll actually dissipate. The next step is to have some gratefulness around the situation, and we all have something to be grateful for, and then figure out where it came from. Well, in my situation, all of my sadness comes from this underlying thought that I'm not enough. So I ask myself, is that thought true? And immediately I'm like, no, I know I'm enough. So do I need to feel a sad emotion around a thought that's not even true? And the answer is no. So boom, you can just jump right back into joy. That's why we call it the Joy Regenerator. So go grab it if you like it, bradchandler.com/joy. You said something earlier in the conversation that uh, everyone likes to do, including myself. And that's like, we like to compare our childhoods, meaning that you're like, well, it wasn't that bad. It doesn't matter on a scale of whether you were locked in a cage or at the dinner table you were mean. It's just, how did it affect you and how did it present to you, right? So you actually, you were affected a certain way. Some people may become a meth addict, right? From the same exact environment that you came through. So it's really interesting how we always want, because I did the same thing. I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad. It doesn't matter how bad it was. It matters how it affected you, right?
Yeah, no, that's so true, and you gotta stop yourself. But sometimes, like, it's a natural reaction to say that, but I do firmly believe that it's all relative. It's all what you're able to take in and handle in that time. And unfortunately, when we are younger, we don't have the capability, and we're looking to those people around us for guidance, that loving guidance. And if it isn't there in the way that a kid craves, and it's really hard to process that and know what to do with it.
Yeah. And how did this depression and anxiety affect your life as an adult?
Oh goodness, in so many ways. I was married to a guy, and we moved over here. We had 2 kids together, and then we had another child over here. But I always look at that relationship. We've since divorced, like 6 years ago now. I always deferred to him for everything. Like, I didn't have a voice, or when I felt like I was pushed down, minimalized, I got really angry, but I didn't know what to do with that anger, what it stemmed from. I just wanted to be heard and seen. So that really translated into how I was around my own children. Like, I really kind of took a step back and let him do a lot of things, like not the day-to-day stuff. So I was there as a mom, like he worked and I stayed at home and stuff. But like a lot of the decision making, I left to him. And it kind of I just lost myself. So I was still like that little child at the dinner table going, what the hell do I do? What do I say? Like, and would go, looked like literally in a conversation. If you and I were out and I was with that husband then, I would have looked to him how to answer our question. It was so ridiculous, but that was the state that I was in, that I couldn't even talk easily on my own. It was that bad. And the only way I stopped that is, it's a really crazy thing. And it's the only thing that I can think, really, if I try and dissect it, if there's even a way to, is when my dad died. When my dad died, it was like the walls came down, or like the mist parted and you could see clearly.
Wow.
Like, it was such a sudden shock to me, because he was like, I guess I was a daddy's girl or something. Like, I didn't have the same relationship with him that I did with my mother. And so when I lost that, I kind of had to, whatever was in there that needed to be strong, needed to rise to the surface, needed to be heard, was fully awakened. Like, my dad passing was a blessing to me in a way. Like, it's such a weird thing to say, but I feel it so strongly that I'm okay saying that. Like, I'm grateful not to have lost my dad, but to have had that experience ignite something in myself. I think it was an incredible thing. And that changed the course of my life. Really did.
So you've used a couple words that I'm going to ask if we can reframe those words. So you use the word weird and you use the word ridiculous. And when you said both of those words, the word that comes to my mind is interesting. So weird and ridiculous is judging you. And there's nothing to judge, because you looking to your ex-husband to answer a question is not ridiculous. It was you just trying to survive, right? Because you were that little girl. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between time, right? And your subconscious mind controls your behavior. So even though you were taking away who you were as an authentic person, right? And that was painful to you, the underlying pain of like being that little girl whose feelings were hurt and she wasn't loved, you perceive that as even worse. So you continue doing that behavior. Isn't that, do you find that interesting?
It's funny. I knew that I would do these things today, and I wanted to say out loud when I said that, "Hi, I'm Kelz, and I'm a saboteuraholic. I'm in recovery, and I'll be in recovery for the rest of my life." Because I tend to do that, but inherently, I know that that was the only way I could be. Like I knew that I couldn't do it any other way, and I feel like then I get that saboteur crush come in, where I'm like, but it was weird. For me, it was, as you said, it was the only way I could cope or deal with stuff. Like I know that viscerally, inherently, but then I get like those saboteurs come back, and I'm like, no, that's just weird. That was such a strange thing to do. Like what's this, other people would have said to me from my past. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting that you said that, because I know it, and I got to stop myself, and then I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
It's
just it's a practice, right? And that's actually probably how you survived as a kid too, because you've got to make sense. Why are my parents being mean to me? What do you think that little girl was saying? Why are they being mean to me?
I'm not worthy. I must be a terrible kid, like
Yeah.
constantly, like all the time.
So you can actually remember you can remember today. You said, "Oh, that's interesting."
I'm feeling like I'm going to cry. Yeah.
Yeah, like I always give everyone permission to cry because it means that you're healing, right? A lot of people don't recall that they said that, but they did say it, and that controls their life now. So as a child, you were doing everything you could to survive. First, you were talking negatively to yourself, saying, "This is my fault and I'm bad." And secondly, you're like, "But I can't feel anything, so I'm going to press it down." It was actually a survival thing for you because your parents, you've got two real needs as a child: attachment, because if you're not attached to them, you're going to die. But you also have the need to be yourself and feel your own emotions and feel your gut, because if 1,000 years ago a lion approaches and you don't feel your gut and you're like, "Oh, this isn't dangerous," you'd be dead, right? So for you, you had to change who you were as a person. And that's really, really tough. Looking at your ex-husband to answer a question is not being your authentic self, right? And that's very, very stressful. But what's the alternative? The alternative is you lose attachment. And because your mind doesn't know the difference between you as a 40-year-old and a 6-year-old, you're like, "I may die," in my head subconsciously. You're not saying this out loud. So, wow, that's some really interesting stuff, Kelz.
Yeah, that's huge. Like I do these little things to get myself in such a good state, because I don't wake up naturally like happy. All the stuff comes into my brain, but I really wanted to come in with such a positive mindset with this. I did all the things, but I still gave myself grace. Like I probably will cry. I don't know. Let's see. Of course,
that's good. Yeah, you got to give yourself grace. So, Kelz, are you enough? Are you worthy?
Oh, heck yeah. I absolutely know that inherently that I am.
Yes.
But I struggle with it constantly. But I'm like a little warrior within myself, like fighting that, like you can even see if you remember the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I feel like I'm like the pink one, just like fighting off the little monsters and stuff. Because I know they'll keep coming up. Those limiting beliefs were so ingrained with me, and so much is coming up even more recently, that I'm so empowered and I feel so good about myself, that they're coming out of the woodwork, and I'm like, I feel like a little like magical warrior, like I'm gonna fight you, because I know in my heart and soul. And that's why I was so miserable, because I was trying to what do we say in New Zealand, like hide my light under a bushel, or whatever that saying is, like no more.
Yeah. So you just stated a fact. The truth is, you are enough. You always were enough, and you always will be enough. You were made to feel as a child that you weren't enough, right? But was that true?
Yeah.
Was that ever you? No, right? You were always enough. So just catch yourself. The real magic on how you unlock this you've got to get yourself in the state of whatever it is that you want to change. So let's just say negative self-talk is something you want to change. So I would bring you to a point where, hey, you're talking in a situation where you're negative self-talking, and we'd say, why is that? And you'd say, well, because no matter what I do, it's never good enough. And then I would ask you, well, Kelz, where in your life did you do something where you were good enough? Let me ask you that question now. Where in your life have you done something where you were good enough?
Oh gosh, constantly with my kids, I think.
Can you give me an
I
example?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in my world right now. And I was listening to those self-limiting beliefs and believing that it was, I'm the bad one, I'm a terrible mom, I'm like my mom, all those things. And there was something in me that almost gave up. It got really dark. I'm not going to say it didn't. I felt really like kids would be like almost better off without me, right? Like I must be just terrible. But there's something in me that was like, I can't just give up. I always got up. I always did the thing. I'm now sharing with them about my journey, my mental health journey. I'm not trying to control them. Like I felt like I was a little bit, I'm trying to give them the space. And even if it's not that they don't want me right now, they may want somebody else to talk to. Like I always give them the freedom. Like I just feel like I'm just being and loving on them. Like I love and hug them all the time. And I'm so proud of that because I didn't have that. My mum never hugged
Yeah.
me. Um,
So,
she couldn't say she loved me. I'm always saying that. So I know I'm not her and I feel it and it's true. And I'm like, I even sometimes look around and go, oh my God, these kids, these are mine. Like I helped with that and I feel proud all over again. And then I see that the awesome kids and young people that they're becoming. I know I'm a part of that. That makes me worthy.
heck yeah. So okay, so you just gave me an example of when you were worthy, right? That you did something right. Was there a time in your life where you said, I can't do anything right? And then I'm no
Oh
good?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So what does it feel like for your mind to hold those two completely conflicting thoughts? I'm not worthy and I can't do enough, but yet I am worthy and I do enough for my kids. How does that feel to you to hold those completely conflicting thoughts?
It just feels so strong that one was such a lie. Like
Yes.
it was such a
Yes.
lie. And I feel like saying, oh my God, that's like, once again, so ridiculous. But the ridiculousness of feeling so bad, so unworthy, it feels like something I cannot absolutely hold on to now. As I said, these little saboteurs come in, but I'm like, whatever. Like, I see you, I hear you, but I am not you. Like, I
Yes.
know who I am. And for me, physiology is so important. When I'm feeling not in alignment with my true self, it's yucky. That's when I'm like yelling, mad at somebody, being a dick, if I can say that. If I'm like that, that's not me. And I will go, why am I doing that? And all the stuff from the past comes in, I can blame that. But I know I need to process that, what I need to work on when that stuff comes up. When I'm feeling in true life, I'm like, sit a different way. I feel like I feel calm. That all that frenetic energy of that sad person that I was is there, but it's not me anymore. It just dissipates.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't sit with those two in the same space at the same time anymore. Like
Yeah,
it,
because one's true
yeah,
and one's false, right? So
yeah.
back to the negative self-talk. You're negative self-talking, which creates negativity in your life. Why are you doing that? Because it's keeping you from feeling the I'm not enough. But the I'm not enough, you've already given one time, and you could probably give me 100 times in your life where you were enough and you did something. So when your mind can see that, oh, there's something wrong here because these two thoughts can't be held in my head at the same time, what will happen is your brain will take over and be like, no, I am worthy. And when that happens, then your negative self-talk will. So anyway, great stuff. Thank you for sharing that with me. So tell us about this book that you're working on.
Okay, so this book I'm working on I'm co-authoring with a group of such amazing individuals. Like I'm so blessed even to just be around these people. They're so inspiring, and I am worthy to be around them. Don't catch me saying anything negative there, Brad. But it's just it came into my life at such a wonderful time. We're calling it manifesting magical moments. And it's embracing the extraordinary and the everyday life, which I just love because you don't have to have the picture perfect life to have those little moments. So this book that I'm co-authoring, I'm starting to write, like we've got a due date. And I can't actually remember off the top of my head the due date. It's the summer solstice, whatever that date that is. It's just out of my head. But summer solstice, so there you go. And
So
I'm working
June or
on
July, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yes, one of those. Yes, I don't know. But it's just about those little moments that I've experienced magic, and they aren't like, even writing this book, as amazing as it is, it's a little pieces that I can see throughout my life that have been those wonderful magical moments that I feel like I've manifested because I was in the dark, seeing that tiny little fragment of light, holding on such hope and such like positivity, even in amongst the darkness, that these little things pop up. And from the manifesting like this home that I'm in now, like I had no money and I bought a house, like, I don't know, to just noticing when my daughter, who wasn't speaking to me for a little bit, like suddenly was like lying next to me, grabbed my hand, oh, I've got chills, and
Oh,
putting a head on my shoulder. Those are magical moments, like
heck
huge and smaller. So it's all those little things. And what an opportunity for me to share those experiences with others. Like I cannot wait for it to be released. I'm just writing away. Like even this morning, I was like, I've got to get up and do those things. I'm like, nah, I'm on my phone typing away with my thumbs and I don't know what I'm doing, but having fun, just letting it out. It's such a precious experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, everything in your life, Kels, that you may feel regretful for or feel bad, I wasn't, whatever it is, like none of this stuff is your fault. And I'm speaking to the entire audience, whether you drink too much, eat too much, you have depression, anxiety, it's not your fault. It's just your mind trying to protect you from what it perceives as worse. So I think you've done a phenomenal job. You're this is a lifelong journey, right?
Yeah.
But I think we can make some massive shifts. And what we talked about earlier, just give that a lot of thought about how you weren't enough, and just think about all the times you were enough, and then maybe that will really shift something inside of you. Because I worked with a client, I just was on his podcast like an hour ago. He came to me and he said, Brad, all I want from you is if I can turn the negative self-talk from a 0 to 10 scale, from 11 to an 8. He goes, that's all. He's like, it'd be worth the money I pay you. And here we are a year later. And I just asked him again an hour ago. I said, where are you at on that scale? He says a 0. He goes, I never talk negatively to myself. And it's the same thing. We just went back and we figured out where in his childhood did he have these stressful times where, control was taken from him, and what was the meaning, right? You know this, like you consciously know, you said, my parents must be mean because I'm no good, I'm not worthy. But we know that's not true. That was your parents' issue from how they were raised and how their parents were raised, right? So great stuff. So as we close here, Kelz, you also do Reiki. You're a Reiki Master Teacher. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, goodness. I love that. And that once again came, it was sparked when my dad passed away. I kept getting all these recurring conversations or seeing things about Reiki. I didn't even know what Reiki was back then. Like I was like, I don't know what Reiki is. It's the most beautiful thing. It's just life force energy that as a Reiki Master Teacher, I am the conduit to, give out to others and to myself. So it was just this great way, like it feels like magic. Like I hold some magic in my hands or in my thought. You can do Reiki through your eyes. There's all sorts of ways, but it's just like, of course I was going to find Reiki or Reiki was going to find me. I've always believed in the magic of life. So when that came to me, and I had the opportunity to learn it from a wonderful lady, Denise, and I learned it really quickly. I did level 1, level 2, and level 3 really fast. Like she was like, whoa, okay, do you want to take a moment? I was like, why? I'm ready for this. And as soon as I gave Reiki to my very first person, I just thought, this is just so beautiful. This is how I can give back without like, really like, what am I good at? What am I like, all those negative things, like I'm not good at anything. I can do Reiki. And I never once had a disbelief in myself of my ability, because I knew it was like a higher thing, like life force energy, right? Like I didn't make it, but I can be a beautiful conduit for it. So I brought that into my life, and yes, for a period of time I blocked it, but it's back and my kids are wanting it again. Like my daughter the other day said, "Mum, can you give me Reiki on her shoulder?" I was like, "Oh, yes, I will." I was so freaking excited. I can't even explain it. And I even taught my girls to level 1 Reiki when they were just little, and I'd love to embrace that more with more kids. But that was a really special thing because
So it's healing from a distance, right?
yeah. Well, no, you can do in-person Reiki, but I've actually chosen to channel it more distance Reiki so I can reach a wider community.
Love it.
I'm actually giving Reiki to a lot of people in New Zealand at the moment, which is my homeland, and not all of them are Kiwi. Some of the funny thing is, some Americans who live over there have come to me, and I'm an American. I love the universe for that. It's kind of funny. But yeah, just to be back and doing that, I've got my Facebook group up again. It's kind of been dormant for a while, and it's just like, more people are coming, like asking about it. It's just such a beautiful healing energy that I needed for myself. Like I needed to top myself up with gas, and Reiki is just such a beautiful way to be able to do that. So
Love
really
it.
inspired.
10 years ago, I thought that was such like woo-woo stuff. And now I completely believe, and I believe we're all energy and that we're all connected. Even from around the world, we're still all connected. Not everyone knows these self-limiting beliefs like you did. Like you can recall that you had as a child these thoughts around I'm not good enough. If you're sitting here and you're wondering if you have these, you can figure out in a 3-minute quiz. It's only 12 questions. Go to bradchandler.com/quiz, take the self-love quiz and see where you stand, because all change begins with awareness. And if you don't have an awareness of what's driving you, there's no way you're going to change it. So Kelz, how can people reach you if they want to connect with you?
Well, you can reach me on Facebook. I'm Kelz Morris-Dale. And you could also look for my Soul Hug Reiki Facebook group. I am on Instagram, but it's easier just to find me on Facebook.
And that's kelly.morrison.374, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm very confusing. I call myself Kelz a Kiwi, Kelz Morris-Dale, Kelly Morrison. You'll find me.
The lady with many names. So we'll put it in the show notes as well. Kelz, thanks for coming on. And as I wrap up here, I just wanted to share that we are, I'm on a mission to reach 1 million people, help them transform their lives. So I need your help. So please, if you like this show, please rate it, review it, send it to your friend, whatever you can do to help promote it. And until next time, love heals all.
Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on more life-changing content. And if you're struggling, you don't have to. Go to bradchandler.com/contact. There, you can join the Facebook community of like-minded entrepreneurs, and you'll see a button to schedule your freedom and happiness call. See you on the next episode.